Welcome back, ball fans. NCAA come to town, and Donde Plowman went scorched earth on them. We're going to go over what she said, which is actually worse than what I thought initially. And we're going to tell you, what does this mean for UT? What does it mean for the NCAA? Do we have something to worry about? And what's kind of the allegation at hand here? But let's get into what Plowman said, because what she said was a lot harsher than what I realized initially.
Well, it was, Bob. Uh, when I first read it, I thought, man, she smacked him pretty hard and said everything but, well, we're going to meet you in court.
Right.
But then when I sat down to write a few highlights out, I realized that she was smacking them about every other sentence. And we start out with it. I mean, she started out just blaming them for this whole mess.
Mm-hmm.
Said, you created the chaos uh, due to your vague and contradictory guidelines. And right off the bat, don't blame us. Look in the mirror.
Right.
Uh, she called them factually incorrect and procedurally flawed, which we'll
Uh,
get into that procedure
right.
here in a little bit, and you can see where that's going to be possibly a major issue,
So
in my
you're
opinion.
saying they're liars and they're stupid.
Well, sometimes if you're really stupid, you know it may not be a lie to you. You're just pretty dumb, so sometimes they can overlap.
Right. Yeah, right.
You know, but they did call them intellectually dishonest too. So maybe that flies into that also.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for that matter, and she basically said Charlie Baker, the head of the NCAA, perjured himself in front of Congress uh, because she pointed out that he went in front of Congress, said he wanted to meet with as many college leaders and as possible to go over this NIL stuff,
Yeah.
and yet when she requested a meeting with him and for herself and Danny White, he said, "Nope, I want to talk to you."
Yeah. You know, he's, yeah, Baker's pissed about all this, but go ahead.
Yeah. Uh, she also pointed out that while he admitted to Congress, flat out admitted that the NCAA rules and guidelines up to that point had been inconsistent and unclear.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you're wanting to hammer people because you've done your job so poorly that I'm going to punish you.
Yeah.
I mean, ballsy to say the least
Oh, yeah.
on his part.
Yeah.
Just to admit that, we've dropped the ball, but now we're going to beat you over the head with it because you didn't pick it up fast enough.
And they knew this was coming.
They
This
did.
was, I mean, they did nothing for a year and a half up to the beginning of this whole NIL mess. They did nothing. I mean, NCAA is the most inept organization I have ever seen. They make the government looks like a well-oiled machine here. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, that's about as bad a comment as you can make on anything.
Well, I mean, look,
Uh,
you have an investigation into wrongdoings typically, which should take a couple of weeks once the investigation happens. It'd be years before they come up with a punishment or anything. I mean, it's crazy. But go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
oh no, that's no problem. Uh, let's see. She also just just told him, so y'all are trying to do something crazy, and that's punish retroactively uh, with these changing guidelines. You know, uh, you gave us something to go by a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was. We followed those.
Mhm.
Now you're looking back and going, you know what? We're going to change the rules. And oh, by the way, because you didn't do what we want to do now, 2 years ago, we're going to punish you. I mean, what kind of what's that like, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna say you're gonna get me for speeding because I was going the right speed at the time, but a year later say, oh, well, we changed that. We didn't tell nobody. We're gonna change that retroactively, and you was going 15 mile over on that spot.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get everybody that was going the correct speed at the time. Yeah, everybody else they're gonna get a ticket now. I mean, that's the dumbest crap ever.
Well, it is, Bob. And she pointed that out. That's just ridiculous. Um, she also accused them of really violating the entire purpose of their organization.
Right.
She said, told them you're not acting in the best interest of the student athletes,
Yeah.
which is supposedly what they always like the moral high
Oh
ground
yeah, that's what they try.
that they
Oh,
always
we're
try to
trying
reach
to
out there.
do what's best for the athlete.
Yeah.
Bull crap. You're trying to do what's best for you. In this case, it's about money.
Yeah, the NCAA has always been a money making venture among the universities that they've just poured the money in. And the whole time they try to act like, the whole ivory tower, we're above things.
Right.
No, they're not. And she just flat out said so. She also called him a bully. Said the NCAA enforcement staff was trying to bully schools back to pre-Austin, and I believe the mention of pre-Austin was a little thrown out there to let them know. Oh yeah, you remember that court case you lost?
Yeah. Yeah, you go
Get
listen
ready
to
for another.
Yeah.
Why don't you try and say, instead of actually passing legislation, they was trying to legislate through their enforcement arm, which is, patently just unfair.
Right.
Then she brought out how a moment ago when I said they was procedurally flawed, they actually changed the rules just a few months back, where if they accuse you of anything NIL related, you're presumed guilty, and you have to prove your innocence. Now, that's crazy as that sounds, they have the right to do that with a vote of schools. And in this case, they had 23 schools vote on it. Well, the problem was they can't do that unless they have two requirements to take that vote. One was it has to be non-controversial matter.
I think this is controversial. I
Yeah,
think about anybody's made it.
patently
Yeah.
controversial. There's no if,
Right.
and, or buts about that. The second thing was it would have to be in an emergency. Now, if you want to describe emergency, if you want to define it, I'm sort of in some ways saying, well, this is something that's got way out of hand and we got to do something now.
Mhm.
But it's like, okay, you allowed it to get way out of hand, and I don't think it's going to hurt to tell the schools in 8 weeks we're going to have a meeting, have a representative there.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference between today and 3 weeks,
Mhm.
4 weeks? I mean, they tried to pass it because they knew they wasn't going to get the votes they needed, or more importantly, they might not get the Power 4 votes that they needed.
Right. These 23 schools could have been any NCAA school. Teams were not even football teams. You know,
It could
I
be
mean,
Morris College, Elon.
yeah. I mean, you need if you're going to claim, well, we got 23 schools. Let's hear who they are. Let's see if they have any kind of NIL stuff going on. These 23 schools might not have any dealings with NIL at all.
Could not be. And I think nicely, or maybe not nicely, but she also called them intellectually dishonest simply for the fact that they come out and said, "Hey, your NIL collectives can talk to these student athletes about all their potential benefits of NIL. You can sign a contract with them, but oh, by the way, any discussions these NIL people have, it can't be recruiting related. Well, obviously, if you're recruiting a kid, you're selling your school, you're selling your location, you're selling your coaches, you're selling all these points. And whether or not the coaches are mentioning NIL, it is a selling point.
Yeah.
And for you to say that you can talk all this stuff, you're just lying to yourself and lying to everyone else when you're saying that the two cannot exist at the same time.
Right.
It's
Yeah, come on.
it's obvious
Yeah.
they do. And every single NIL collective out there, which is basically every school at this point,
Right.
all fall under this. So what they're coming at Tennessee with is something that every school has to worry about.
Right. And I think they targeted Tennessee. They knew they had to go. They're going to try to go after somebody. They're going after Tennessee because we kind of rolled over on that last one. We're a repeat offender, and I think they just thought, hey, we could get because we were a repeat offender, they could get the media, public opinion on their side.
Yeah, yeah, just like a prosecutor will talk about prior convictions that someone may have, or they raid somebody's home and they talk about they had weapons and pornography,
Yeah,
both of which may be perfectly legal,
right? Yeah,
but they just try to really put a black eye out there.
yeah.
And also to liken it to that same thing, it's like a prosecutor coming out with 10 charges on somebody
Mm-hmm.
and saying, you know what, we're going to drop 8 of these if you'll plead guilty.
That's what they was hoping for.
That was what they was hoping for. They, according to Donde's letter, there was obviously they was going to try to hit us with lack of institutional control, which is the big daddy of all charges, which could lead to the worst possible outcomes.
Yeah,
they're probably going to thought they could drop that down and get Tennessee to agree to something smaller. Then all of a sudden they've set a precedent and continue to and kind of scare the other schools to say, well, we better
We're
straighten
still
up.
in control.
Yeah.
We still are.
If we don't want to get hit, they're going to come after us.
Yeah.
And she called her bluff and said, okay, you want to play this game, let's play this game.
Yeah.
Uh, and we've seen since then, Bob, we've seen a number of people, both in and outside this thing, chime in.
Oh yeah. It seems like the media, the podcast people, other podcasts, the national media seems to be all on Tennessee side for the most part on this. I mean, and that's huge. Just like you were saying, a lot of these battles, just like in politics,
Well,
you know,
speaking of politics, we've had some political people jump into it too,
yeah,
Bob.
yeah, Bill Lee and Tim Burchett, and there's several more in Tennessee that have come on board with Tennessee on this and criticizing the NCAA. So
Well, it's just good politics to support your local school
it really
because
is.
no one likes the NCAA, and they've earned that dislike.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, Donde had everything lined up pretty good because the Tennessee and Virginia AGs filed suit within 24 hours. You don't think this was prepared?
Right. Yeah, they didn't just draft up that thing last night, night before. This thing was already written up.
Yeah, Donde was already prepared to battle.
Hmm.
And this suit with the AGs, we won't cover everything. They're just trying to basically get a temporary restraining order from the NCAA uh, investigations in NIL for the time being.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're just wanting people. They want rules before they have punishment.
yeah, that's absurd, Bob.
Yeah.
I expect other AGs to jump in on this because the last I heard, up to 20 schools may have active investigations going on right now with NIL. So you can expect the AGs in multiple states to come out and kind of jump in this because NCAA just simply overreaching.
Mhm.
And and these collectives have a lot of reason to jump in because, listen, it's not like Spire Sports and Ball Club is doing anything no one else is doing.
Right. Well, Tim, let's talk about what is NCAA leaked some information out to the New York Times stuff. They're trying to fight back. Let's talk about what they are saying actually happened, and let's just show that that really wasn't that bad. And we'll talk about also what we think the end result on this is.
Well, one of the key things that's outside of just some of the negotiations that went down was there seems to be a lot of buzz about a plane ride that Nico came out. Oh, excuse me. Nico came out for an unofficial visit.
Mhm.
Well, NCAA rules say that on unofficial visits, your transportation must be paid for by the player or the um, parents. Okay. Now, I know at one point he did have a contract with Spire and may have possibly at that point had the money to pay for a plane. But my understanding is Spire did provide the private plane.
Mhm.
Um, and on the face of it, that looks like a potential violation.
Right.
However, I do think there is some wiggle room on that.
Yeah.
Just like if you have a 7-on-7 tournament that comes through Athens or Columbus, Ohio or South Bend, the players will stop and quite often, multiple ones will go in and tour the campus, meet with the coaches, and have an unofficial visit while they're there.
Yeah.
And these 7-on-7 tournaments or AAUs are not always paid for by the parents of the players.
Right.
They can have sponsors that sponsor these teams and whatnot. And this is okay because guess what? You didn't come to town just for this unofficial visit.
Right.
You had a legitimate reason for being in that town.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Nico had a legitimate reason for being in the town.
Right.
While he was here meeting with Spire, and you can touch on this some, Bob, and what exactly his business dealings were while he was here.
Well, he's also talking about clothing. He was talking to business people in town. I mean, he was wanting to, I think, start I think, a pajama line or something like that because there was a big thing about him wearing pajamas during a lot of these, uh, camps and stuff. Yeah, it was about business. It wasn't just about Tennessee. So, and Spire is different from Ball Club. Ball
Mm-hmm.
Club is the collective, but Spire was here before. They're a marketing agency.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like Heupels, the head of Spire or anything, you know.
No. And no UT employees have been mentioned as doing anything wrong in this investigation, from what we understand. Um, but it'd be much like saying that you had to go on a business trip with your company, Bob, down to Orlando, with a caveat that, oh, by the way, while you're there, when you're off work, you cannot go to Disney World or Universal.
Right.
Look, you didn't go to Disney World or Universal. That's not your purpose of the trip to Orlando. But while you're in Orlando, you're going to go see the big mouse.
Right.
And like you said, Bob, Inspire has kept the receipts. In fact, Inspire has retained the services of Tom Mars. For those that you don't know, he's one of the preeminent lawyers in the country. He's made a living suing large corporations and beating them so bad that 6 months later they come to him and say, "Would you be our general counsel?" Walmart did it. I mean,
Yeah.
And Walmart's they can choose from whoever they want.
Right.
They brought him aboard and quickly moved him up the ladder till he was at the top. Could have easily stayed there, but along the way, one of his many stops, he started getting involved in some NCAA cases, representing some student athletes. And I believe right now, the guys in NCAA headquarters probably look as Tom Mars as the Grim Reaper, because he's absolutely slaughtered them time and time and time again.
Right.
So, and he's not the only lawyer Spire has on retainer. I've heard the number's 5, but when you have Tom Mars, you're bringing Babe Ruth. Yeah.
Yeah. So we fully anticipate Tennessee winning this thing. But now, one thing we'll say, this might be drawn out for a very long time.
Well, we're going to get a lot of leaks. I promise you, within the next week, you'll see another leak from the NCAA.
Yeah.
Because they chose to fight this in the court of public opinion, as you said. And we're going to get some news that we don't like every now and then.
Right.
There's no way around it. But we'll see what happens on that. But continue, Bob. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But I'm just saying that I think this thing will work out in Tennessee's favor in the end. Just don't look for a resolution, just like with the NCAA any other time. It's not going to be tomorrow. So, with that said, Tim, anything else you want to point out?
No, I think it's just kind of funny that NCAA may have come into Knoxville looking for a scalp and might be the one that leaves without their head.
This is very true. NCAA might be the one that's in deep trouble at the end of this. I believe them and football might be over with.
Well, it could be. That's something that's been rumored for decades now, that the Power 5, now the Power 4, would separate themselves from the NCAA when it comes to at least football.
Mm-hmm.
And Baker himself has kind of been pushing something along that lines, because he realizes it's going to happen, but he wants to try to keep it under the NCAA umbrella, so they can still have getting a little money from from it.
That's what a lot of it's all about.
Oh yes, but even he sees this happening, and this might be the case that the NCAA loses their football programs.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, watch us for an update. We'll have something coming back this if there's any kind of news coming up, and we'll have some more videos coming up soon. All right.
Go Big Orange, guys.
Go Vols.